Mysterious dog invades cemetery, approaches a newly digged grave, and what he does shocks everyone. In the quiet of the old city cemetery, where century-old tombstones rise among towering cypress trees, a thick fog hangs over the sacred ground that autumn morning. The silence is broken only by the rustling of dry leaves and the distant sound of the chapel bells. Amid the shadows of the trees emerges Buddy, a stray dog with faded brown fur and deeply expressive eyes. His cautious steps echo along the stone path as his snout scents the air filled with mystery. Buddy is not an ordinary visitor to this place. He is a solitary wanderer roaming the city streets in search of affection. On this day, however, something inexplicable draws him through the iron gates of the cemetery. The wind whispers among the tombstones, carrying the scent of freshly placed flowers and the palpable sorrow of mourning. Buddy follows his instinct, guided by a force he doesn't even understand, until he comes upon a newly dug grave. There, under the astonished gaze of the few present, the mysterious dog is about to reveal something that will forever change the lives of those who witness his arrival. In the solitude of the streets, Buddy carried in his heart a deep longing that went beyond mere survival. His brown eyes, marked by time on the streets, reflected the relentless search for a place to call his own. With each passerby, his tail wagged hopefully, but few stopped to offer a pat. During cold nights, he sheltered under dusty awnings, dreaming of the warmth of a true home. The stray yearned not just for food or water, but for the unconditional love that only a family could provide. His lonely barks echoed through the dark, alleys like silent prayers for connection and belonging. The scars on his body told stories of rejection and abandonment, but his spirit remained gentle and welcoming. Every gesture of affection he received was treasured in his memory, fueling the hope that one day he would find someone who loved him completely. That special morning at the cemetery, something beyond instinct guided him. It was as if a greater force led him through the iron gates, whispering promises that there, among tombstones and cypresses, his destiny was about to change. The mystical call that attracted him to that sacred place seemed connected to his quest for meaning and acceptance. In the atmosphere charged with emotion and mystery, Buddy felt he was closer than ever to fulfilling his greatest desire, to find a heart willing to embrace him and transform his solitary existence into a shared journey of love and companionship. That gloomy morning, the cemetery witnessed a moment of deep sorrow. A young woman with dark hair, Emily, stood before the freshly dug grave of her grandmother, Margaret. Silent tears streamed down her face as she placed a bouquet of white chrysanthemums on the still fresh earth. The heavy air carried not only the typical autumn fog, but also the weight of mourning enveloping the family gathered for the final farewell. Buddy, guided by an inexplicable instinct, watched the scene from a distance. His attentive eyes captured every detail of the funeral ritual, especially focusing on the grieving young woman. There was something familiar in Emily's sadness that mirrored his own loneliness. The stray felt an immediate connection, as if an invisible thread bound them through shared pain. The sound of the chapel bell echoed 3 times, prompting those present to turn for a brief prayer. In that moment, Buddy seized the opportunity to stealthily approach the grave. His snout picked up a peculiar scent emanating from the freshly turned earth, something beyond the flowers and moisture of the soil. It was an ancestral call, a message that only he seemed capable of deciphering. The relatives, absorbed in their farewell moment, initially did not notice the dog's presence. Emily was the first to notice the unusual movement near her grandmother's grave. Her tear-filled eyes met Buddy's, establishing a silent connection that transcended words. The dog held her gaze as if trying to convey an important message. The atmosphere in the cemetery subtly shifted. The breeze became stronger, making the cypress leaves dance to a mysterious melody. The attendees began to notice the unexpected presence of the dog, some with discomfort, others with curiosity. Emily's aunt murmured a prayer, interpreting the apparition as an omen. Buddy remained still, his body tense as if awaiting a sign. Driven by a force she didn't understand, Emily took a step toward him. The dog responded with a gentle nod, his eyes fixed on hers. It was as if the entire cemetery had fallen silent, waiting for the next event. A palpable tension hung in the air. Emily's family watched the scene with a mixture of apprehension and fascination. Buddy's presence at the funeral transformed That moment of farewell into something deeper, more meaningful. It was as if the stray carried a greater purpose, a mission about to unfold. The challenge presented went beyond the mere presence of a dog at a funeral. It was the meeting of two solitary souls, connected by loss and the search for connection. Emily, immersed in her grief, found in Buddy a reflection of her own need for comfort and understanding. The dog, in turn, seemed to have found in the grieving young woman the possibility of fulfilling his greatest desire, to belong to someone. The gazes of those present shifted between Emily and Buddy as the wind continued its mysterious dance among the tombstones. What would happen next would forever change both their lives, turning that moment of sadness into a predestined encounter, where the mystical and the real intertwined in a web of destiny and redemption. The inciting incident comes to life as Buddy, guided by a mysterious force, approaches the newly dug grave. His movements are slow and calculated, as if each step carries a deeper meaning than mere canine curiosity. The wind whispers around, making the dry leaves dance in an almost supernatural choreography, reinforcing the atmosphere of expectation surrounding the moment. With almost surgical precision, Buddy begins to dig the fresh soil near the grave. His paws work with a determination that transcends the usual behavior of a stray dog. Those present at the funeral watch the scene with a mix of astonishment and discomfort, some whispering among themselves, others paralyzed by the strangeness of the moment. The earth moves under Buddy's swift and precise movements, revealing a metallic glint that soon becomes visible. His eyes, once focused on the digging, now shine with an intensity suggesting something beyond animal curiosity. An object begins to emerge, an antique necklace with intricate details that seem to tell a story much older than that morning of mourning. Emily, still absorbed in her grief, is the first to notice the unusual movement. Her eyes, once clouded with tears, now fixate on the dog with a mix of surprise and inexplicable interest. The necklace seems to draw her attention, as if it holds a long-forgotten secret, a connection that transcends the present moment. The relatives begin to murmur, some fearful, others curious. The cemetery's silence is broken by whispers and restrained movements. Buddy continues his task, indifferent to the reactions around him, as if fulfilling a predetermined mission. The necklace is now fully exposed, its details revealing an antiquity that contrasts with the moist, fresh earth of the grave. A collective shiver runs through those present as Buddy delicately lifts the object, holding it in his mouth like a messenger from another world. Emily steps forward, her eyes fixed on the necklace that seems to contain secrets from other eras. The dog then does something no one expected. He places the object at the young woman's feet in a gesture that seems more calculated than casual. The tension in the air is palpable. What should have been a moment of farewell transforms into a ritual of revelation. The necklace glimmers under the diffuse autumn light, reflecting secrets that seem eager to be discovered. Buddy remains still, his eyes fixed on Emily, as if expecting something beyond a simple reaction. At that instant, the cemetery seems to breathe. The cypresses sway in a silent dance, the tombstones bear witness to the moment, and time seems to stand still. What was meant to be a funeral turns into a meeting of destinies, where a mysterious dog becomes the protagonist of a story about to be unveiled. The young woman slowly bends down, her trembling fingers reaching for the necklace. Buddy does not move, watching every gesture as if that moment were the climax of a much larger journey. The relatives hold their breath, waiting for what is about to happen. The revelation was about to shock everyone. The first twist in Buddy's narrative unfolds as a moment of deep, mysterious connection. His paws dig the soil near the grave with an almost supernatural precision, drawing everyone's attention. The wind seems to collaborate with his movements, whispering secrets among the dry cypress leaves. Rapidly, a metallic object emerges from the moist earth, an ancient necklace whose intricate details suggest long-forgotten stories. The subtle gleam of the object contrasts with the gray atmosphere of the cemetery, immediately catching Emily's attention as she watches the dog with a mix of astonishment and curiosity. Buddy holds the necklace delicately in his mouth, as if he were a messenger from another world. His brown eyes, filled with an almost human intensity, fixate on Emily, establishing a connection that transcends the simple relationship between human and animal. The gesture seems calculated, not random. When he places the necklace at the feet of the grieving young woman, a collective shiver runs through the relatives. The object seems to carry a special energy, a secret, yearning to be revealed. Emily, with trembling hands, approaches the necklace, sensing that this moment is more than a coincidence. The atmosphere in the cemetery completely changes. The whispers cease, and a silent tension settles. Buddy remains, still, watching Emily's every move, as if his sole purpose in that moment is to deliver the mysterious object. The necklace subtly glows, reflecting fragments of light that seem to tell an ancient story. Its presence there, at that exact moment, suggests a greater purpose, an inexplicable connection between the past and the present, between loss and hope. Emily realizes that the object is not just a simple adornment, but something deeply meaningful. Her eyes, once clouded with pain, now shine with a mix of curiosity and anticipation. The mysterious dog has brought something that could completely change the understanding of that moment of mourning. The revelation was about to occur, promising to transform the funeral ceremony into something far beyond a simple farewell. Buddy, the stray dog, had become the unexpected protagonist of a story about to be unraveled. The tension in the cemetery grew as Buddy began his mysterious approach toward Emily. The stray moved with an almost calculated grace, his cautious steps revealing an intentionality that transcended ordinary canine behavior. Emily, immersed in her grief over her grandmother's recent passing, watched the dog with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. The relatives' gazes shifted between Buddy and Emily, creating an atmosphere charged with expectation. The dog seemed to know every inch of that sacred territory, moving with a confidence that intrigued everyone. His eyes, deep and expressive, conveyed an intensity that went far beyond simple animal curiosity. When Buddy finally approached Emily, an almost inexplicable connection was established. The young woman felt a shiver run down her spine, as if an invisible energy bound them at that moment. The wind whispered among the cypresses, carrying a mix of mystery and emotion, making the dry leaves dance in an almost supernatural choreography. The relatives began to murmur, some with discomfort, others with growing curiosity. The eldest, Aunt, made the sign of the cross, interpreting Buddy's presence as a sign from beyond. Emily, however, remained still, her eyes fixed on the dog who seemed to have a specific mission at that funeral. Buddy did not exhibit typical stray behavior. His movements were calculated. His posture revealed a dignity that contrasted with his worn appearance. It was as if he carried an important message, a secret that needed to be unveiled at that very moment. The young woman felt an inexplicable connection with the animal. Her grief over her grandmother's loss seemed to echo in Buddy's deep eyes, which watched her with an intensity beyond human understanding. Something in that connection suggested that their meeting was no mere coincidence. Whispers around them grew, mingling with the distant sound of the chapel bells. Emily took a step forward, her hand trembling slightly as she approached Buddy. The dog did not move, remaining still as if understanding the delicacy of the moment. The energy in the cemetery subtly shifted. The air grew denser, filled with an emotion that transcended mourning. Buddy seemed to be the catalyst for something greater, a messenger arriving at the most unlikely moment, bringing with him the promise of a revelation that would forever change Emily and her family's lives. At that instant, it became clear that the encounter between Emily and Buddy was no accident. Something greater connected them, an invisible force guiding them toward a shared destiny, about to be revealed before the astonished eyes of everyone present at the cemetery. Emily carried the weight of a profound loss. The 25-year-old woman, with dark hair and eyes marked by sadness, represented the mourning of an entire generation. Her grandmother, Margaret, was not just a family member, but an emotional pillar that had now bid a final goodbye. In the family, Emily had always been seen as the different one. Sensitive and introspective, her way of processing emotions diverged from other relatives. While everyone sought to quickly move on with their lives after the funeral, she needed time to understand and process her pain. Her relationship with her grandmother was especially significant. Margaret had been more than a traditional maternal figure. She was a confidant, a storyteller who imparted wisdom through narratives that spanned generations. Her advice always came wrapped in unique sensitivity, understanding Emily's internal movements even before she voiced them. During the funeral, Emily watched her family with a distant gaze. Uncles, cousins, and close relatives conversed in discreet groups, exchanging comments about life, business, and future prospects, as if death were just a fleeting detail. This posture deeply troubled her. The young woman felt that her connection with her grandmother transcended the material world. There was an almost telepathic bond between them, a complicity that depended on words. Margaret had always said that Emily possessed a special sensitivity, a gift for understanding the subtleties of life that few could perceive. At the exact moment Buddy appeared in the cemetery, Emily felt something different. The dog was no ordinary animal. His presence emanated a singular energy. His movements did not seem random but carried an almost mystical intentionality. The stray's approach awakened an immediate curiosity in the young woman. Their gazes met, in a connection that went beyond ordinary human understanding. Buddy seemed to know her pain, understand her loneliness, carrying a secret that needed to be revealed. The relatives watched the scene with a mix of puzzlement and distrust. Some whispered among themselves, others frowned, questioning the sudden presence of that unknown dog at such a delicate moment. Emily, however, remained still. Something told her that the encounter was not casual. The dog represented more than a lost animal. His energy, movements, and deep gaze suggested an important message about to be transmitted. The young woman felt her life would change completely from that moment. Buddy was not just a dog but a messenger of a transformation about to happen, a bridge between her past of mourning and an unknown future. Clara's, Emily's name translated as Emily, pain intertwined with Buddy's loneliness, creating an emotional atmosphere that transcended the boundaries between humans and animals. The mourning for her grandmother Margaret had plunged the young woman into a deep sadness abyss, while the stray carried in his eyes the same sense of abandonment and need for connection. The moment their gazes met, something extraordinary happened. Buddy was not just a wandering dog, but a being that seemed to deeply understand Emily's pain. His movements were delicate, almost calculated, conveying a sensitivity that went far beyond common animal behavior. The relatives watched the scene with a mix of discomfort and curiosity. Discreet whispers circulated among them, some interpreting the dog's presence as a strange sign, others simply intrigued by the inexplicable connection forming between Emily and Buddy. The young woman felt a shiver run down her spine. It was as if the dog carried an hidden message, a solace that no words could express. Her tear-filled eyes found in Buddy's a reflection of her own solitude, a silent understanding of the pain consuming her. Buddy approached slowly, showing no aggression. His entire body radiated an energy of protection and understanding. Each step seemed to carry years of street experience, yet also a dignity that impressed everyone around. He was not just a lost animal, but a being endowed with an almost supernatural sensitivity. The connection between Emily and Buddy grew with each passing second. It was as if two lonely souls had finally found each other amidst the sadness of a funeral. The dog represented more than a stray. He was a messenger of hope, a symbol that love can emerge in the most unexpected moments. Emotions intensified. Emily felt that Buddy had not come to the cemetery by chance. There was something greater connecting them, an invisible force guiding them to each other. The wind among the cypresses seemed to whisper secrets, confirming that the encounter had a purpose beyond immediate understanding. The relatives watched in astonishment. The scene defied all expectations of a funeral moment. Buddy transformed the environment of sadness into a stage of possibilities, suggesting that connections between living beings can transcend physical and emotional barriers. Emily began to feel an inner transformation. Buddy's presence acted as a balm for her pain, offering comfort that no words of solace had managed until then. The dog seemed to understand every nuance of her suffering, responding with pure and unconditional compassion. At that moment, the mystery intensified. Buddy was not just an observer, but an active participant in Emily's healing process. His presence in the cemetery suggested that there are connections beyond human comprehension, stories intertwining in absolutely unexpected ways. With Buddy's arrival and his unusual behavior at the funeral, criticisms and distrust quickly began to emerge among Emily's relatives. Her Aunt Beatrice, known for her conservative temperament, was the first to express her dissatisfaction. With a stern look, she loudly questioned the presence of the unknown dog at that sacred moment of farewell. "Where did this filthy stray come from?" she exclaimed, standing up with a brusque movement that sent her dark dress swirling. Her tone was filled with disdain, mixing indignation with a certain disgust for the animal that seemed so comfortable near the deceased's grave. The younger cousins exchanged curious glances, some stifling discreet laughs, others showing discomfort. The tension grew with each second Buddy remained near Emily, challenging family conventions and traditional mourning protocols. Cousin John, more pragmatic, tried to shoo Buddy away with a brisk hand movement, but the dog was undeterred. His fixed gaze on Emily conveyed a determination beyond the understanding of those watching him. It was as if an invisible force protected him, creating an impenetrable barrier against attempts to expel him. Emily, on the other hand, felt torn. Part of her wanted to defend Buddy, feeling an inexplicable connection with the animal. Another part feared her family's reaction, traditionally rigid in moments of mourning. Her fingers trembled slightly, alternating between petting the dog and restraining him to avoid further confrontations. Mrs. Anderson, the family matriarch, watched everything with a penetrating gaze. Her silence was more eloquent than any words. Every movement of Buddy was meticulously analyzed, as if trying to decode the mystery behind his unexpected appearance. Criticisms multiplied. "This is absurd," exclaimed one of the uncles. "A stray dog invading Mom's funeral?" Indignation grew proportionally to Buddy's proximity to Emily and the newly dug grave. The young woman began to feel the weight of her family's stares. Her tense body betrayed the internal conflict between the desire to protect Buddy and the fear of displeasing her family. Critical whispers echoed like waves of disapproval, creating a suffocating atmosphere. Buddy, oblivious to the criticisms, remained still. His behavior defied common logic, as if he knew a greater purpose that everyone present was unaware of. His eyes, deep and expressive, seemed to hold secrets no one was prepared to uncover. The tension reached its peak. Emily would need to make a choice: succumb to family pressures or defend the mysterious dog who had arrived at such a delicate moment. Each passing second made the decision harder, with her family's critical and judgmental gazes weighing heavily on her shoulders. Emily watched the necklace with a mix of curiosity and reverence. The ancient object, unearthed by Buddy from the mop soil near her grandmother's grave, glowed with an almost mystical luminescence under the autumn light. Its intricate details revealed an artistry from another era, with small engravings that seemed to tell a silent story. Emily's hands trembled slightly as she picked it up, feeling the cold metal and the texture of something that had belonged to her grandmother Margaret. Something about the necklace seemed to hold a secret, a message that spanned generations. The clasp was delicate but still functional, as if waiting to be opened at the right moment. Buddy remained still, his eyes fixed on Emily, witnessing every move she made with an expression that went beyond canine curiosity. He seemed to understand the importance of that moment, as if he were a guardian of ancestral memories. As she opened the locket, Emily discovered a small, yellowed envelope. Her still trembling hands carefully unfolded the paper. Her grandmother's handwriting was unmistakable, delicate and firm, characteristic of another generation that valued the art of handwriting. The letter began to unveil a secret no one expected. Margaret wrote about an old love prior to her marriage, a story never shared with the family. She revealed details of a deep connection that transcended time, a story of love, sacrifice, and difficult choices. Margaret's words were not just a confession, but a legacy of love and understanding. She wrote directly to Emily, as if she knew that one day this message would be found. She spoke about following one's heart, about accepting life's unexpected paths, and about the courage to embrace love in all its forms. As Emily read the last line, tears streamed down her face. Buddy, sensitive to that emotional transformation, approached and rested his head on her lap, offering silent comfort. It was as if the dog understood the depth of that moment. The necklace's revelation completely transformed the funeral atmosphere. What was meant to be a moment of farewell became a ritual of reconnection, a deeper understanding of her own family history. Buddy, the mysterious dog, had become the messenger of a long-held truth. The relatives around watched the scene with a mix of astonishment and emotion. The stray dog who had invaded the cemetery was no longer an intruder, but an instrument of a revelation, that would forever change Emily's understanding of her own story. Margaret's letter was not just a document, but a portal to forgotten memories, untold stories, and a love that transcended generations. And Buddy, the mysterious dog, was living proof that some encounters go far beyond mere chance. The tension in the cemetery reached its peak. Emily felt the weight of the decision she needed to make, while her family's silent stares pressed down on her. The necklace discovered by Buddy seemed to carry more than its simple ancient metal. It held family secrets that could completely transform the dynamics of that mourning moment. Her eldest aunt, known for her strict conservatism, already showed signs of disapproval. The whispers increased, creating an atmosphere filled with expectation and judgment. Emily knew that revealing her grandmother's letter would mean challenging deeply rooted family traditions. Buddy remained by her side, almost like a silent guardian. His eyes connected with hers, transmitting an inexplicable strength, as if the dog understood the importance of that moment. The wind in the cemetery seemed to whisper secrets, making the cypress leaves dance in an almost mystical choreography. The young woman held the yellowed envelope, her hands slightly trembling. Every movement she made was closely watched by relatives, who alternated between curiosity and apprehension. The silence was so dense that even the distant sound of the bells seemed to carry an air of expectation. Emily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision. Revealing the letter would mean breaking the silence about family stories kept hidden for decades. It would expose vulnerabilities, challenge crystallized memories, and potentially rewrite the narrative they had always known about her grandmother. Buddy, inexplicably, gently rested his paw on Emily's hand, as if offering support. That simple gesture seemed to give her the necessary courage. The relatives' gazes intensified, creating an almost palpable pressure in the cemetery's damp air. The young woman realized that this moment transcended a simple funeral. It was an opportunity to redefine memories, bring to light silenced truths, and build bridges between generations. The mysterious dog who had brought the necklace seemed to be the catalyst for this transformation. Her mind wandered between the fear of judgment and the desire to honor her grandmother's truth. The seconds seemed to stretch infinitely, creating a suspenseful atmosphere that enveloped everyone present. Emily knew her next action would change everything. Buddy continued by her side, still but vigilant. His presence was simultaneously comforting and intriguing, as if he understood dimensions beyond human perception. The dog had become more than an intruder. It was now a messenger of destiny. Emily's decision was about to be made, promising to unveil secrets that would forever transform the family dynamic. With only a mysterious dog and a necklace laden with untold stories as silent witnesses. At the climax of that moment in the cemetery, Emily stood before her family with unwavering determination. The necklace discovered by Buddy would not be just another forgotten object, but a portal to a family truth that had remained silent for generations. Her eyes, once clouded with mourning sadness, now shimmered with an intensity that made everyone around discreetly step back. Beside her, Buddy remained, not as an intruder but as a silent guardian of a secret about to be revealed. "Grandma Margaret's letter cannot be ignored," declared Emily, her firm voice cutting through the expectancy-filled air. The relatives exchanged looks of surprise and discomfort, some already preparing arguments to interrupt her. The wind in the cemetery seemed to conspire with the moment, making the cypress leaves dance to an almost mystical melody. Buddy, attentive to every movement, remained still as if understanding the magnitude of that instant. Emily began to read the letter, her voice initially trembling but gradually gaining strength and confidence. Her grandmother's words revealed a story of love, sacrifice, and choices that no one had ever known. Each sentence struck at the traditional family structures, challenging silences built up over decades. The eldest aunt, known for her strict conservatism, tried to interrupt, but Emily silenced her with a look. In that moment, she was no longer just the grieving granddaughter, but a brave narrator of a long, suffocated story. Buddy, inexplicably, seemed to understand every word. His eyes, deep and expressive, shifted between Emily and the relatives as if witnessing that historic transformation. When the last word was spoken, an absolute silence took over the cemetery. The previous whispers had been replaced by a collective feeling of revelation and astonishment. The letter not only exposed family secrets but offered a message of love, understanding, and acceptance that transcended generations. Emily had broken invisible chains that had imprisoned memories and emotions. Buddy, the mysterious dog who had started the entire journey, remained beside Emily, not as a stranger but as a companion symbolizing the inexplicable connection between destinies. The family, stunned, would now need to process that truth that would forever change the narrative they had built about themselves. And at the center of that transformation were a brave young woman and a dog that seemed to have been sent for a greater purpose. The cemetery, silent witness to that moment, seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Secrets had been freed, truths revealed, and a new story was about to be written. The reactions in the cemetery exploded into a mix of astonishment, shock, and disbelief. Emily's relatives responded in different ways, revealing deep layers of repressed emotions that the secret uncovered by Buddy had brought to the surface. Aunt Beatrice, known for her conservative temperament, clutched her chest in a dramatic gesture. Her face, previously pale from mourning, was now red with indignation. "This cannot be true," she exclaimed, her voice trembling between shock and denial. Her brother, Charles, calmer, approached Emily with a look of understanding mixed with surprise. His eyes scanned the young woman's face, as if seeing her for the first time, trying to comprehend how that revelation could change everything they knew about their family history. Buddy remained still beside Emily, almost like a silent guardian. His eyes, deep and expressive, alternated between the relatives, as if comprehending the complexity of that moment of revelation and transformation. The murmurs grew in the environment. Some relatives whispered among themselves, exchanging looks filled with unspoken meanings. Young cousin Raphael was the first to break the tense silence. "This changes everything," he said, his voice containing a mix of admiration and perplexity. He looked at Buddy as if the dog were the true protagonist of that surprising revelation. The most impactful reaction came from Mrs. Anderson, the family matriarch, who had remained silent until then. Her eyes, once clouded with the pain of loss, now shimmered with renewed intensity. She approached Emily, gently touching her face. "Grandma was always braver than any of us imagined," Mrs. Anderson murmured, her voice filled with emotion. In that moment, mourning transformed into a celebration of courage and truth. Buddy, inexplicably, seemed to understand the transformation. His body, once tense, relaxed. It was as if the dog had fulfilled a greater mission, bringing to light a truth that needed to be revealed. The whispers gradually turned into more open conversations. The initial tension began to dissolve, replaced by an energy of curiosity and questioning. Emily felt that something important was happening, not just a family revelation, but a reconstruction of memories and relationships. Buddy's presence made the moment even more surreal. How could a stray dog have brought such a deep secret to light? His mysterious arrival at the cemetery, the discovery of the necklace, it all seemed part of a greater plan that transcended human understanding. The relatives looked at Emily with a mix of admiration and surprise. The young woman who had arrived at the funeral engulfed in sadness was now transforming into a brave narrator, breaking family silences built over decades. Buddy continued, by her side, almost as a symbol that some connections go far beyond what can be explained. A dog who invaded a cemetery had become the catalyst for a deep and unexpected family transformation. The transformation that followed in the environment was almost as mysterious as Buddy's arrival at the cemetery. Determined to honor her grandmother, Margaret's legacy, Emily prepared to take the dog to her home, symbolizing the start of a new journey that transcended mourning. The relatives watched the scene with a mix of surprise and gradual acceptance. Buddy was no longer an intruder, but a messenger who had brought to light truths silenced for generations. His faded brown fur and deep eyes now carried a dignity that went far beyond his appearance as a stray dog. The journey from the funeral home to Emily and Buddy's new home was marked by a silence filled with reflections. The dog, sitting in the back seat of the car, seemed to understand the magnitude of the transformation he had caused. His eyes, once marked by the loneliness of the streets, now shone with renewed hope. Emily's house, once an environment of mourning and sadness, began to breathe new air. Buddy cautiously explored every corner, sniffing furniture and nooks as if mapping his new territory. He was no longer a solitary wanderer, but a member of a family he had helped to redefine. In the following weeks, Buddy's presence became a symbol of renewal. His routine with Emily included long walks in the park, moments of affection, and a connection that went beyond the traditional relationship between human and animal. The fear. Dog who had invaded the cemetery now protected and loved unconditionally. The family, once divided by secrets and rigid traditions, began to come together differently. The revelations brought by Margaret's letter had broken invisible barriers, allowing for more genuine and loving dialogues. Buddy seemed to be the silent catalyst of this transformation. Neighbors soon noticed the change. Emily, once a young woman engulfed in mourning, now smiled more often. Buddy, always by her side, seemed to radiate an energy of healing and belonging. Together, they formed an unlikely duo that defied expectations and celebrated life in all its complexity. In Emily's bedroom, the necklace discovered in the cemetery found a special place, not as an object of the past, but as a symbol of connections that transcend time and space. Buddy, lying nearby, seemed to guard the secret of how he had completely transformed the family's destiny. The story of the mysterious dog who invaded the cemetery quickly spread. To some, it was just a curious tale. To Emily and her family, it represented a miracle of renewal, a reminder that love can manifest in the most unexpected forms, even through a stray dog who chose to change a destiny with his unforeseen arrival. The conclusion of this extraordinary story invites readers to a deep reflection on the mysterious paths of destiny. The encounter between Emily and Buddy transcends mere coincidence, revealing that meaningful connections can arise in the most unexpected moments, especially when we are vulnerable and open to transformative experiences. Buddy's journey, from a lonely stray to a messenger of family truths, symbolizes the hope that everyone has a greater purpose. His arrival at the cemetery was not by chance, but a divine call to unveil secrets, heal ancestral wounds, and reconnect people through unconditional love. The legacy left by Margaret through the letter found in the necklace reinforces that every family story carries layers of complexity beyond what we can imagine. Emily's courage to reveal the truth breaks chains of silence, demonstrating that authenticity has transformative power. Buddy represents more than a pet. He is a symbol of resilience, the ability to overcome, and the inexplicable connection between living beings. His unexpected arrival at the funeral was not an accident, but a divine invitation to redefine pain into love, solitude into belonging. The narrative invites us to reflect: what family secrets remain hidden? What untold stories need to be revealed? What mysterious connections are waiting to transform us? The final call is a challenge. Stay open to unexpected encounters. Allow yourself to be surprised. Understand that love can manifest in the most unlikely forms, even through a mysterious dog that invades a cemetery and completely changes the course of a family's story. The final message resonates as an invitation to hope. Not all the greatest moments of transformation are planned. Sometimes they arrive quietly, with four paws, deep eyes, and a heart full of purpose.